Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Imagination Nature. This will be episode number 10, so I decided to do something special. Not only are we doing an hour show, but it's going to be the best show yet. Unfortunately, it's not going to be here. And although this is beautiful, and we have just got dumped on with more snow than we've ever had here on the eastern end of Long Island with nor'easter Juno, but the East Hampton crew here in both the town and village made short work of this, and everybody seems to be being able to move around and operate and function properly. We want to thank them for their efforts and their hard work and their long hours. I unfortunately wasn't here during the storm, but I was shooting down south, and I decided to make a show out of it for you. I know most of the people here in East Hampton have visited Florida, but I went down to the Keys for myself. It was the first time I had been to Florida, and it was magical. I had the best time, and I filmed it all, and I want to show it to you now because it was all based around wildlife and the beauty of wildlife, and it has some great messages in there. So I am so thrilled to share with you my first hour-long special, and I'm going to take you all back and bring you, now sit by the fire because that's the right place to be, but now I'm going to take your minds and your sight and what you hear, I'm going to take it all back down south now, okay? And we're going to go to Key Largo, Florida. So come on, let's head, shut your eyes for just a second and then open them up in front of the TV and turn it up and get ready for an awesome time. Thanks. Let's get going. Wow, that's a lot of snow. Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Imagination Nature. I'm in a very special place today. I'm in the Keys of Florida, and right now I'm at a bird sanctuary, and I'm this pelican who doesn't seem to like it too much, but they're a very calm and very friendly animal in most cases. But we're here at a not only a bird sanctuary, but where birds get rehabilitated when they're injured. And there's just tons of birds here, and beautiful everywhere you look. So let's look around, enjoy this. We're here at Leah's Ark with Leah. And Leah is an outstanding special person to me because she takes such good care of wild animals. And we're here with two of her beautiful friends. We all know about raccoons because we have them in Long Island, but these guys are very special. I believe one was taken out of an attic, yes, and the other one was born here.
Yes.
And they are the most magnificent and kind animals you can possibly imagine, which is the perfect way to show you that these animals do not need to be treated the way they are in some areas. As you can see, you know, this animal was not trained to be domestic like this. And the fact, Leah, before I'm going to get you to just start talking about it. Okay. You know, the rumor is that when these animals get older, they acquire a wild instinct and they just change. Well, and obviously we got a full-grown raccoon here, which yes, should have gone through that, if that was correct.
Ringo's about 3 years old. Okay. There's a lot of things to consider. First of all, these are wild animals. I do not recommend them as pets. The one Ringo was rescued from an environment where he wasn't welcome, and he became tame enough for me to work with him, so that he's kind of my raccoon ambassador. So I use him for education, which is why I have him, and I love him. As far as their changes in temperament, there's a lot of things that can affect that. Being hormonal might make them a little testier at times than others. But the biggest issue that I've seen with people who attempt to keep raccoons as pets is if you confine them in a way where they are really unhappy, that shows in their disposition. And the older they get, the less they like it. If you try to force them into an area that they don't want to be in, if you try to force a raccoon to do anything it doesn't want to do, it may bite you. This is not a dog, this is a wild animal. So you have to understand them a little bit. And if they're unhappy and miserable, then they're going to show that in their disposition. Ringo really likes it here. We've tried to put Ringo in a bigger outdoor enclosure where he can climb trees, and every time he finds a way to escape to come back to what he considers his safe den. So he's comfortable, and therefore his temperament has always remained really good and stable. He's never bitten me. Ever bitten me? Even though I tease him once in a while just to see what I can get him to do.
Now, you have just told me that you have watched my episode on the raccoons, and you noticed that I made a faux pas in my explanation.
Well, perhaps.
Which I am thrilled for you to have come and said that to me. Because what I always say is you never stop learning. Don't ever say you know it all or you think you know it all, because you never do. There's always something to learn, and with wildlife that goes a lot farther. Please explain what I said and how it's not true. I mean, how it's... correct me on what I said.
If I'm correct, I think that raccoons are not nocturnal. Raccoons that live in and around people have become nocturnal to avoid people. They know that it's safe for them to scrounge around at night. But the more comfortable they feel around people, the more likely it is that you'll see them during the day. So if they don't feel threatened, they may in fact come out and be seen during the day. In their natural environment, where there aren't people around, they're much more active during the day on a regular basis because they don't have that threat. So, in a sense, raccoons are neither nocturnal nor diurnal. They're really opportunistic in every sense of the word. They take advantage of whatever their environment has to offer them.
Oh, excellent. Can I give you a piece of food? Can I give you some food? Huh? Bit of food? You're a good boy. You're a good boy. You're a good boy, Ringo. You're a good boy. I think you're a very good boy.
What's the matter, bud? What's the matter, little buddy? Come here, talk to me.
Oh, my goodness.
Come talk to me, little buddy.
Now, did you raise these from babies?
This one was born here.
Nice.
And this one came to me at 6 weeks old. He was pulled out of somebody's attic in Miami.
Well, let's take this from the raccoon to my favorite animal that you have here, and let's go take a walk over there and talk about him a little bit.
Okay.
Is it a him?
It's a him, and
Okay.
it's a relative of a raccoon.
That's why I want to segue right into that. So Ringo and I'm sorry, the
Ranger.
other Ranger and Ringo. I thank you so much for letting me speak with your mommy here and that and show everybody how awesome you are. And let's go over and check out our next little friend.
He has become such a bad little horse.
Well, well, well. Here we have a very, very special animal, which is actually a relative of the raccoon, as you can tell, and quite friendly as well. This is a Coati Monday, and I believe you said it was a male.
Yes, it is. He's a neutered male,
He's a
actually.
neutered male, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you would find this animal anywhere from Mexico into Central America down into the upper half of South America.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So, what can you tell us about the Coati Monday?
Well, they are fairly common in the pet trade, but again, this is still a wild animal. Its needs are so much more specific than a dog or a cat. And if you really want something like this as a pet, do your homework, know what you're getting into, and be able to make a commitment. That being said, he's a very interesting, inquisitive creature. As you can see, he doesn't seem very shy. He gets along with anything that's not aggressive towards him. For some reason, he gets along fine with the horses. And he's just an odd and amazing creature. I've been told that they're excellent climbers. However, I've never seen this one climb a tree.
Really?
Why that is, I don't know. Maybe because he was born and raised in captivity and it never occurred to him. I don't know.
Now, I hear the whistling. Is that their vocalization?
Yes.
Is it the extent of their vocalization?
No, when he gets into some high-pitched squeaks, then you best leave him alone.
Is that a fact? Okay.
Yeah, that's when he gets a little bit ramped up and a little bit angry. But most of the time, when he's squeaking in that whistly noise, then he's happy.
Well, he sure is happy because he's squeaking away.
They have pretty much the same diet as a raccoon. They'll eat pretty near anything.
Now, I would kind of, if I had to explain what this animal is, I would say it's a cross between a raccoon and possibly a lemur, and maybe with a little anteater.
Yes, that's exactly how people describe
Really?
it when they see
Then
him.
I hit
yes.
it. Then I nailed it.
Yeah.
His nose is doing a lot of action. He likes using his nose for rooting and feeling around. And
Right, I actually think his nose is as sensitive to him as the raccoon's feet are to them.
exactly, which is very, very their most sensitive area. Well, this guy is my favorite because he's so friendly. And because it's not a species that's indigenous to the United States, so it's always neat to see an animal up close that is a bit of an exotic, and he sure is well behaved. So he's my favorite, I gotta say.
Yeah. He's my
Meanwhile, I
son.
cannot pass up you just mentioning and telling us about this little guy behind you.
Georgie. Georgie is almost a year old. He's a stallion. He's a miniature dwarf, and he's going through his version of the terrible twos. He thinks he's big, bad, and large and in charge. And he's on a rampage to bite and attack pretty much anything he can get around to. But because he's so little, I don't take him too seriously. And we haven't really given him the discipline that he would have gotten if he were a big horse. So he's an incorrigible, spoiled brat. And one of the smallest horses in the world, in fact. He has stopped growing and will remain as you see him for the rest of his life.
Wow. So is there any Guinness possibility with
There's
with
a
this,
possibility. Guinness lists the smallest stallion as 20 inches tall. Little Sir George here is 19 and a half inches tall.
No kidding. And you say he's
So-
full grown, so
And
it's
he has
quite
stopped
possible.
growing. It's quite possible.
Okay.
We shall see.
Well, let me ask you to show me one more of your favorite animals here that you have. I think I would like you to talk about whatever you pick, something that you feel would be something interesting that you would like to tell me about.
Okay.
Anything.
I think we're going to go to a critter that's somewhat controversial right now.
I love it. I love it.
I think I'm going to talk about something that's been talked about here in South Florida for a little while now.
specifically in this area?
This is an Argentine black and white tiger.
Ooh.
Fairly common in the pet trade. As the name implies, they're from Argentina. And it's a beautiful lizard. And when you see one of these little guys crawling about in a 10-gallon tank at your local pet shop, it looks like quite the animal to bring home. The problem is that they're highly adaptable, they grow very large, and they do quite well here in South Florida. And they have colonized in South Miami and perhaps the Everglades. They have become a non-native invasive species because, well, it could be for a lot of reasons. Is it because somebody gets them and gets tired of them and releases them? Or do they accidentally escape? Or do they get too big and people don't know what to do with them? I'm not sure, but for whatever reason, there's enough of them now in South Florida that they're breeding and reproducing.
Wow.
And of course, they have no natural predators, and this animal will eat anything it can catch. And the bigger it gets, the bigger things it will eat.
Now, I can't help but ask this first, the question that immediately pops into my head is, with the iguana population, is there an interaction that we know about? Is there?
Probably not. Iguanas live around the canals and
Right.
they climb.
Okay.
So that they aren't, and they're vegetarians. So they're
Okay.
not really directly competing, nor do they interact much at all. So I would imagine that if this critter came across a small iguana and could catch it, it would eat it. But the
Really?
iguanas would probably retreat to a bush or a tree for safety. These guys will eat eggs of iguanas, for sure. They'll
Sure.
eat eggs of the sea turtles. They'll eat the endangered Key Largo wood rats, if they can catch them. They'll eat anything that they can get hold of. I don't know at this point if they are responsible for a whole lot of damage in the environment, but it's too early to tell.
Yeah.
And anytime you introduce a non-native species, it puts things out of whack. It's never a good idea.
Sure.
So if anybody thinks they want one of these as a pet, this guy is not full grown. Please know what you're getting into. Please be prepared to take care of it when it gets 4 feet long.
Wonderful. And although I said I was going to ask you about 3, I had forgotten all about
Okay,
radar,
all right,
and I'm going to have you go over there because we did manage to get a little video when we were here last time, and he was the sweetest, most adorable thing. What can you tell us about radar, Leah?
Radar is the world's smallest naturally occurring canine. They come from the deserts of North Africa. And they average like 2.5 to 4 pounds. The males, which is what he is, being a little bit bigger. Their big ears are, it's a little deceiving. You might think it's to hear well, and in fact it has more to do with heat dispersion than it does hearing. Much like an African elephant's big ears, these guys also have big ears. It's a desert adaptation.
Yeah.
They are fairly common in the pet trade. It's a beautiful little animal, but it's not a dog. It will not behave like a dog. You will not housebreak it. You will not teach it not to climb on your table. You will not teach it not to knock things over. So if you want a cute little furry animal, I still suggest you get a dog. But this is a beautiful creature.
It sure is. Oh my goodness.
He makes all kinds of funny noises. He gets along well with the dogs, but again, you can't keep him in the house. He'll pee on anything.
And so I mean, like, it's a fox. So
It's a
it's a
truly
canine.
fox,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Truly a fox. He's a wild animal.
Oh, Leah, let me ask you one final question, and we really appreciate you taking the time out. You did this the other day for us, and you're doing it again now, and we can't thank you enough. We think you're a really special person for what you do. If you had a message for the viewers of my show, what would you like them to know as a universal message about wildlife?
The habitats that wildlife have to access, their areas are shrinking, and they're becoming more and more in contact with people. And I think it's important that people just learn to get along. Just because you have a raccoon that visits your backyard doesn't mean it needs to be trapped and removed. It's part of the environment. Learn to live with them. If that means you got to put your bird seed in a better place, then do that. But for crying out loud, let's try to enjoy the wildlife around us and let it be there. That's why one of the reasons I have the raccoons is so people can see that they're nice animals. They're not to be, you don't need to be afraid of them. They're part of the world we live in. All of these animals are, and we just need to make space for them.
And let's just make sure everybody realizes you are a licensed
Yes.
Rehabilitator, and you also have a traveling zoo. So
Yes.
you teach people.
I try to educate the children. I try to teach them to appreciate the animals, to understand them a little better, and maybe they'll be a little more tolerant of the animals around them that way. And I don't encourage people, of course, to go out and get these animals as
Right,
pets.
you don't. Right.
Most of the reason that I have them is because somebody else couldn't.
Exactly. Well, Leah, we can't thank you enough for the work you do and for being so kind to us. And keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You too.
All right. Leah's Ark, everybody. Oh, cutie. You
Yes,
saying
I like
goodbye? Are you saying goodbye?
What's up, Radar?
Oh, what a cutie. Okay, let's go.
If I was a dreamer, I'd be free. Sleep beneath the waves, drift out to sea. Never let the night embrace me with your silence, Manatee. I'm no longer bathed. There would be no need for walls or break. Spend my days just drifting, let me so uplifting, Manatee. Someone put the light on me, and it burned my eyes. Every time I run, I'm far behind. It's time. Took me out to sea, please don't delay. No one feels more like prison every day. So wrap me in a blanket, drop me from the plank, sweet Manatee. Someone put the light on me, and it burned my eyes. I don't wanna wait till the oceans rise. It's time. Souls they come and go. The lessons are the same. Everybody knows.
Folks, the village of East Hampton has an ongoing situation, and I have to say personally, I'm not 100% in favor of the way it's been handled. It is hurting the wildlife that is so precious to not only me, but everyone who cares so much for the deer here in East Hampton. They wanted to cull the herds, but instead they decided to go with a sterilization process, and the sterilization process is not something that I personally feel was the proper way. The deer themselves are being harmed in a fashion that makes one think, why? Rather than learn to live with wildlife, we find ways to manipulate the species surgically. It's just not right. The outcome hasn't been entirely successful. In fact, there have been accidents, as they themselves, the people that are doing the operation, has confirmed. Accidents meaning there have been male fawns accidentally. In procedures such as this, there shouldn't be any room for accidents. But ladies and gentlemen, the reason I interrupted our beautiful session together to bring this up and come back here and bring this up is because I'm fixing to show you a little short film that I shot down there about a very, very special key in the Florida Keys, and that is Big Pine Key. And the island of Big Pine has done something completely different. Because they have a very similar species to the white-tailed deer, but a smaller version, it's called the key deer. And the key deer on the island of Big Pine are treated with respect. and so much respect that it's become a literal a living example of how people have chose to accommodate the deer rather than themselves. It is a great example of how it is possible for wildlife and humans to live together under the most difficult of circumstances. So it's good to see, because it fits well with what's happening right here at home. So I'm sorry I had to break into the good flow of the Florida session we were having. So let's get back to it and enjoy this little segment on the key deer of Big Pine Key in Florida. The key deer out here have limited space. They do the same things deer do everywhere else in the country. The difference is people here protect the deer rather than find ways to solve nuisance issues. They do things like strictly enforce speed limits to protect the deer. These are key deer, and this is a full-grown buck. He stands about knee-high to me, and he is a very wild animal, yet because of the protection status out here on Big Pine in the Keys of Florida, you can see that he's very domesticated. And you'll also notice around here, when you're driving around here, that the people do the speed limit. And they drive very slow, and nobody's in a rush. But they've built this island to accommodate the deer, not the people. And they've made bridges so that over dry land, so that the deer can pass under them and not have to cross over the roads. Any access to the bridges are preempted by cattle guards. An example that people should follow. This is the way people should deal with wildlife. Not look for ways to thin herds and reduce the populations, but more to learn how to live with the wildlife. They have just as much reason to be here as we do, and as we build and squeeze them into smaller areas, this is still their home as well. We need to protect these animals. Hats off to the people here in the Keys for doing this kind of planning for the wildlife. I'm just thrilled. I think I have so much respect for this town in Big Pine. That's the key deer. We're going to leave him be now. I want to thank my good friend Vincent Isavoli from the Florida Keys down there in Key Largo for having me down there and really coordinating this whole special for you all, and for me, obviously. And he actually, this next clip really is going to be something special, as it was to me. It was a complete surprise, and this is one of the highlights of Vinny's awesome coordinating. Vinny is a retired member of the Miami-Dade Fire and Rescue Service, and he has, as you can imagine, has some wonderful connections, and one of them happened to be the captain of Venom 1 from Miami-Dade, which is the unit that when there's 911 calls for venomous animal bites, snakes in general, down in Miami-Dade County, these are the people that respond. Actually, they had a show about this on the Animal Planet. It was called Swamp Wars. And you can see my next guest on reruns of Swamp Wars, but I really want to thank him and his wife for allowing me to come by, and he showed me under some wonderful and safe circumstances, was gracious enough to allow me to film some very, very awesome things. Beautiful snake. And this here in Florida, they're an invasive species. Am I correct, Jeff? I'm here with Jeff Fobb, who you might know from the TV show Swamp Wars. And he's got a wonderful array of reptiles and turtles and just some beautiful stuff out here in Florida. And this here is a Burmese python. So I'm handling him very carefully. You notice I'm supporting his whole body. You don't want to let the snake's body hang. You want to always support it. They can injure themselves if not. This is an actual skull of a Burmese python to give you an idea exactly what they're packing here in the mouth area. And this was from an 18-footer. And as you can see, he's got a row of teeth, and they're all slanted backwards, and so that it would be very difficult to pull yourself out of the mouth once he's got you in it. And you can see the teeth are quite strong, and a lot of people don't think that pythons and boas have teeth. They would be mistaken. And let me ask you, Jeff.
Yes.
Where exactly does it dislocate?
Right here in the front, there's a symphysis in the front.
That's where it.
There's a little piece of tissue that binds those two together, and that's why they can spread out and open their mouth so wide to swallow large meals. See, their skull here is protected, protects the brain, and then they've just got this huge symphysis there that'll open wide and allow them to swallow huge food items. They can swallow items probably 3 times their girth, sometimes more, as long as it's got the good shape.
Wow. Here we have an eastern diamondback rattlesnake. What can you tell us about this, Jeff?
Their range are only found in like 11 states, 10 or 11 states, and they, because of the size of the animal and how much range they need, they're threatened at the very least, mostly by development and persecution. Rattlesnake roundups deplete the population, takes healthy animals out of the population.
Now, what are we looking at here?
It's a water moccasin. This is just a young one.
Oh, yeah, okay. Wow. Now, all venomous snakes, when they bite you, they don't necessarily inject their venom.
No. They might give a dry bite. Those are just warnings. Venom is biologically expensive to produce. they don't want to waste it on something unless it's something that's threatening their life or it's something they can eat.
And what do we got here, Jeff?
It's a pygmy rattlesnake.
That's a pygmy rattlesnake. Indigenous to the area?
These are found throughout South Florida, throughout the state, all the way up into the Carolinas again, and then a little bit west.
And where does it get its name from?
Because they're tiny.
Tiny, okay.
A big one would be 20, you know, a decent size would be 20 inches.
Okay. Hey everyone, today is very special. I'm going to be swimming with one of the most intelligent creatures on the earth. I'm going to go swimming with the dolphins. We're here at Dolphins Plus in Key Largo, Florida, and we're going to bring you inside and give you the experience that I'm going to have. I'm super psyched about this, and I hope it's going to come out great so you can have the same experience on video as I'm going to have in real life. I'm telling you, I'm stoked. So let's check this out. We'll go inside and get this started. Let's go.
So on these jumps, is that a learned behavior or would they do that in the wild?
Well, actually porpoise and jump in the wild as well.
Okay, I'm going in to swim with the dolphins here. I got Leo and Julie, and they look awesome. I'm still very pumped up, so let's get this going.
Yep, and hold on. Woo!
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Woo! Oh, you're an export, girl.
Was there a third one
Wow,
involved there?
that was Miss Nika. She decided to surf off.
She was swimming with me. That was awesome.
I'm gonna let Dell push me through the water.
Was that three of them?
That was Nika in front of you.
And
She came from the next door neighbor
Great
dock
job,
to surf.
Nika.
That was kind of a fun game to surf off the front, wasn't it? Just Dell deserve a round of applause. Good job! Good job! Thank you for playing!
Good, guys.
So what do you think, Dell? Is that really cool?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Can I ask them a question? And maybe they can answer appropriately for me? You guys are not porpoises, are you? You're not fish. You are bottlenose dolphin. And you're fantastic. And you're very beautiful. We're here with Mary Lou from Dolphins Plus here in the Keys of Florida. Beautiful, beautiful place. We just went swimming with the dolphins. I told you I was all pumped up about this. I'm still pumped up, and it's all over. That's how awesome this experience is. Mary Lou has been very gracious enough not only to be my trainer during this swim with the dolphins, but she's also allowed us to sit with her for a moment and ask her a few questions. Mary Lou, the first question that comes to my mind is, we've already discussed with Leo and Julia that they are bottlenose dolphin, not porpoises and not fish, they're mammals. But how do you tell the difference between a porpoise and a dolphin?
That's a good question, and I think a lot of people misunderstand the differences between porpoise and dolphin. A lot of times people assume that there's a difference in size. Typically there can be. Porpoises are typically a little smaller than most dolphin species, especially the bottlenose dolphin species. One of the main differences, there's certain vertebrae in a dolphin's neck that's not fused, so that enabled, you saw Julie and Leo nodding their head and shaking their head, and it enables them to turn and do those types
Be
of
able to
movements
turn
that
their
we
heads.
can use with
Okay.
our necks. If you were to see a porpoise, their vertebrae are all fused, so they would roll their whole body.
No
They can't
kidding.
have that head movement.
All right, so there's
or that
there's
turn.
a
So that's one of the main differences.
very significant.
Another main difference is the shape of the teeth. So with the bottlenose dolphin, or dolphins in general, they have a cone-shaped tooth, and porpoises have a spade-shaped tooth.
Oh, okay. Do they eat different food?
Not necessarily. A lot of it's going to be regional. Bottlenose dolphins in particular are found worldwide, so they're in all the oceans, and they're going to eat whatever is local in that area. Porpoises, if you're in an area that have both dolphins and porpoises, they're probably going to be hunting some of the same fish.
Okay, and do they coexist okay together?
Yeah, they coexist just like any other species.
Do
of
dolphins
mammals.
coexist with
Mammals do.
all marine life pretty much?
For the
they
most
seem-
part, I mean, in terms of marine mammals, typically most dolphins do, with the exception of the killer whale, or the orca, which is the largest species of dolphin.
Okay.
And they're known as the killer whale because they do hunt other marine mammals as well. Certain pods or locales of killer whales will hunt other marine mammals as well.
Okay.
They're also fish eaters, so there's certain pods that eat specifically fish only, and then there's certain pods that might hunt a sea lion or a seal, those sorts of things, which is why we refer to them as the killer whale.
Okay. And I see you keep using the word pod. That would be
That's the group or the family unit
Family
that
unit.
most marine mammals live in. That's what we call it. So instead of a flock of birds or
Herd of,
herd of elephants,
okay.
it's a pod of dolphins.
interesting. They're very friendly. And I asked you this over there about, do these know compassion or have emotion? And you answered, it's something we don't know. But obviously they communicate.
They certainly have a very extensive form of communication, and they have a social hierarchy within the pod. So there are submissives and dominants, and they can change and move around within that social hierarchy. The question that you ask gets tricky because from a scientific perspective, we try not to be anthropomorphic. We try not to inflect our own emotions and feelings onto other animals. So that's where that question becomes tricky. If you're talking to Mary Lou, the dolphin trainer, that's the answer I'm going to give you.
Gotcha.
If you're talking to Mary Lou, the person who lives and works with dolphins every day and loves them, I would say absolutely they have feelings and emotions and express those in lots of different ways. And we've been able to learn a lot of their body language, a lot of their vocalizations. So Leo and Julie were both super chatty throughout the session. As I was saying earlier, I wasn't asking them to make those vocalizations for the most part. You could tell when I was asking them to vocalize, and that was to demonstrate to you some of the vocalizations they could do. But when they popped up coming in from a behavior like squawking and squealing, that was because they were excited. And
Okay.
those were really, excited, happy vocals moving around. That's where all those vocalizations are coming in. So whether I ask them to make that noise or ask for this vocal, what about this one? Yeah. Thank you. So they all come.
You had to make three different noises, and I know they probably make even more.
They know a lot more than that.
All right,
In
but
fact,
you
it's
don't-
just a matter of
We
how
don't know
many-
we don't know what they generally, maybe what they might mean differences.
Right. Again, we can tell a noise through watching and observing, and all the time that we spent with them, we've been able to tell which vocals for this specific pod, especially, is an excited vocal, which is a angry vocal. But I couldn't tell you exact meaning. I don't have a dolphin English dictionary.
Right. And I can't help but ask these questions because I feel that they're so human-like. I mean, they're so. You feel such a connection.
That was
when
the
you're
word
with
that I
them.
was actually getting ready to say, is the connection. And that's kind of one of the main reasons that we're here is, you can learn about dolphins, you can see them in other zoos and aquariums, you can go out on a boat and learn about them and see them in the wild, but having that hands-on connection where you can sit down and really see what's going on, the interactions that they're having, and having that interaction, having that experience is a invaluable educational resource for us. People come, they create a connection with the animals, and then they have a love and a care for their wild counterparts, or maybe the ocean in general, or it's a way for us to kind of bring an awareness to your actions and your individuals. People tend to care for things that they experience. And we're just here to make sure the animals that are here are representatives of the animals in the wild. They're ambassadors for their wild counterparts.
Absolutely.
We want to make sure that our audience, the select group of people that get to come here, learn a little bit about the animals, and then hopefully have a love and passion for the animals in the wild. But at the same time, we also want them to realize that these are our family members, and we're caring for them the way we would care for any other family member, ensuring both their physical well-being as well as their emotional and mental well-being. And that's something that, at the end of the day, is the most important part of our job, is maintaining their health and well-being.
Awesome. Well, I think the animals are super special, and I think you are also a very super special person for being a trainer for these animals and representing them the way you do, and this place here at Dolphins Plus. Fantastic people. Don't pass up the opportunity if you're here, not only for the experience of the dolphin swim, but to meet some fantastic people and see what it's really like to run an operation that is 5-star, no doubt about it. Okay, Mary Lou,
Well, thank you very much.
so
It was
much.
great to meet you. It was our pleasure to
And a
have
pleasure as
great
well.
learning.
Great, and it was fantastic. I'm still pumped up. I want to go again. No, I'm okay. We'll come back though and definitely do this again, without a doubt. But thanks, Mary Lou. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's snowy, it's slippery. The animals are going to be out there looking for food. It's going to be difficult for them to get food. Now's a good time to get the bird feeders out, and it's also a good time to keep an eye on your roof and your gable vents and your soffits for animals that are in desperate need for shelter. Let's keep them out of your house so they don't become nuisance wildlife and they remain wildlife. Please be a watchful eye and be careful of them. And that goes for all wildlife. The foxes are out there looking for food as well, and the raccoons and the opossums. So it's very important that you be very careful because wildlife just doesn't disappear in the winter. Okay, it's just more difficult time for them. They need our assistance. They need our mindfulness and our carefulness more than ever during the winter. Ladies and gentlemen, you be safe as well, and we'll see you on the next episode of Imagination Nature. Thanks.